Good evening. Welcome to the January 11th, 2021, A Time for Truth show. Hope that you're doing well. We have a great show for you tonight with two guests I'm very honored to have. One is retired Globetrotter, Mr. Robert Hunter, and the other is Dr. Barrett Lane, who you see on the screen. Very honored to have Dr. Barrett Lane. She's quite a quite a person and has a master's in special education, a postgraduate degree in educational administration supervision from the College of Staten Island. She's a certified New York State and New York City school district administrator, teacher, assistant principal, field supervisor of the New York City public school system. She has her PhD from Concordia University, where she did a thesis, very interesting, on the phenomena of collective teaching efficacy in urban schools. Aside from that, if that wasn't sufficient, she's a fully ordained minister and senior and has a mission to inspire with Bible studies, worship services, and leadership conferences. She's the 2003 recipient of the NAACP William Morris Humanitarian Award and the 2013 Urban League Charles Langer Community Service Award. She served as president and vice president of the Staten Island Council of Churches, vice president of the Churches of United Worldwide Action, president of the United Ministerial Alliance of Staten Island, and spiritual advisor for the Staten Island Black Heritage Day Committee, leading various prayer vigils, marches, protests, luncheons, conferences on the issues of violence, prejudice, political representation, shooting, and religious rights. So it's my pleasure, along with Mr. Robert Hunter, to have Dr. Barrett Lane on the show. Welcome, Dr. Lane.
Thank you. Thank you very much. How are you?
Very odd. Yeah, quite. We haven't even really touched upon your whole resume, but Mr. Hunter, I can see why you wanted to invite Dr. Barrett Lane. Do you want to say a few words about her?
Yeah, I truly worship Dr. Barrett. I didn't know who you were talking about at first when you were introducing her. I met her through her husband, Raleigh Carita, who was an All-American at LIU, one of the great players in the metropolitan area. I mean, really powerful. And she got us to mentoring on Saturdays in Staten Island. And I brought up Bob McCullough, Freddie Crawford, my son, Ray Haskins, and Bernard Harden. And we would, my son coached the team. I gave some mentoring during lunchtime with the kids. I learned an awful lot. We had a great end of the year one year where we had the All-Star game, and it was like a banquet, and they gave out awards. But I really liked the small lunches in which we would talk about life and eat lunch at the same time. It was very unique. The program she runs there in Staten Island is truly unique. We first.
You know, Dr. Lane, Bobby was alluding to your program. Tell the viewers a little bit about your program, please.
So it was basically the whole idea of the program was to address some of the life issues for the youth using something that they love to do. They love to play basketball. They love to dribble the ball, shoot the ball, and they loved learning about the game itself. And so that program was actually a clinic where they would come in, they would get the drills for 2, 3 hours. Then they would sit down and eat lunch with uh, guys who had been through the pros and had come up the ranks in some way, whether it was through college, overseas, professional ball, NBA here in the United States. And they would sit down and get a chance to be up close and personal with guys who had made it, had some significant success that had them in a place where they were able to earn money using that skill. But it wasn't just about basketball. It was about learning how to manage, navigate, and manipulate the different things that life throws you. And so we actually got partial funding through the Department of Probation, because some of the young men that came through our program were on probation.
Mhm.
And so this was a program to try to instill some interest and motivate them back into society to go towards developing the kinds of habits that it would take to get a job and keep a job and get up on Saturday mornings and come for 3 hours and work hard on this court. So it was challenging for some of them, but some of them I was so proud of the fact that they were there on time and just really met the challenge with a lot of fortitude. And so it ended with us playing the guys playing against the New York City Police Department, the finale game, and they loved that because I don't know if you're aware of this, but the New York City Police Department has like a Division 3 basketball team. I think they're from Division 2 and 3.
I didn't
uh,
realize that.
Yes, they were. Those guys. Yeah, they all had played in high school and in college, and so the police department has a team. New York City Police Department has this team, and so the guys actually were able to go against New York's finest, if I could say that in air quotes. And just kind of meeting, here is a group of individuals that maybe some of them had some negative encounters with, but it was a chance. And I used basketball as a chance to bridge the gap in the community, especially after what happened with Eric Garner here in Staten Island. Staten Island was just sort of under siege with the relationship that was so strained between the community and the police. And so again, we used basketball to bring the community together. And so again, they weren't ready for us the first time. So the first time we won. But yes, this has been quite a journey, and my inspiration, of course, was my late husband Riley, who inspired me so much. And by meeting great guys like Bobby and Bob McCullough and all these guys, just get Pee Wee Herman and Joe Hammond, who Riley actually knew these guys also, and they all played at Rutgers Park. They all had come through Rucker Park, and Riley used to tell a story about how there was one time when this team, their best players didn't show up. So Riley's intention was to beat Joe Hammond's record because nobody had beat his record. So he got his sneakers on. He told the guys today is the day he's going to beat that record because the team that he was going against, they were really not a big challenge. Somebody got wind of the fact that he was going to try to beat that record and forfeited the game. So,
Oh
um,
my God.
yes. But yes, so this is it was the inspiration, and guys like Bobby and that still really are out there in the community, encouraging younger kids as they're coming up, to stay away from drugs. This is a big issue because drugs and alcohol is a drug, and marijuana is a drug, and these drugs are literally like the children are young youth are escaping, and this is something that they're growing up to see. they call marijuana the gateway drug. So our intention is to keep them involved in healthy activities so that they don't feel the need to use drugs, that they have these euphoric experiences in life so that they are not drawn towards the euphoria of chemical and being chemically induced, a chemically induced euphoria that will end them up in jail or dead or just not unemployed. I mean, just life itself would just be so much harder. It's so much harder without the skill set that they need. So this is what these basketball clinics have been designed to do. And I've enjoyed the journey of doing.
Well, it sounds really beautiful, I gotta tell you. So why don't we do this? The engineer has the video of your basketball event. So let's play that event. Engineer, let's put it on for the audience.
Go fast. Go, you should be first. You should be first.
But television star, travel all over the world, playing basketball, famous for the tricks and things that he's doing, and still very well known all over the world. So he's here on Staten Island, and his name is Bobby Zorro Hunter.
Hey, come here. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, put that down. What we're going to talk about this day is three-man basketball. Three-man basketball. We're going to talk also about the ability to catch the ball, which is very important, being able to catch the ball and be ready to catch the ball at all times. I'm going to get it. Get it, boys.
Raleigh, when he was 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, I met him as a kid, him and Andre Gaddy and several other kids in our Brooklyn USA program, the original Brooklyn USA program, which we ran out of St. John's Recreation Center. We had a whole litany of kids who came through there. I mean, of course, a lot of the players played in other places with other people also, but they were touched by St. John's Recreation Center and Brooklyn USA. Had Albert King, Bernard King, Ronald King, Gerald King, all the King brothers, the Olds brothers, Spalding, all those guys came through St. John's Recreation Center. At one time, in order to be certified as a player in Brooklyn, you had to come through St. John's Recreation Center. So everybody came through there, Fly Williams, World Be Free, Bernard Hart, all those guys put their stamp on, got their approval.
The New York Reds was an all-black team that won the World Championship in Chicago. The first time in history. 1939? 1939. Then the next year, the Harlem Globetrotters won the World Championship. Then the Globetrotters started touring. Around the world. Then in the 1940s, what is that, 7 years later, 7 years after the all-black basketball team won the World Championship, 7 years later, the NBA was created. 7 years later, 1946.
Tell the kids who you are so they'll know who's been here. Okay.
Like you said, my name is Barrett Lane. I grew up in Brownsville, New York, Brooklyn. And if it wasn't for basketball, I don't know if I would be living. I had an outlet of basketball to keep me out of trouble in the streets, which was back in the 50s, early 60s, was rough. You couldn't even walk around the corner without getting into an argument or fight. The most precious thing I had, two loving parents that kept me in the right focus for me, kept me on head straight. But it was up to me when I'm out in the streets to realize certain avenues what I could do and what I can't understand. And the most important thing is you got to be a man. You got to believe in yourself. You got to follow your dreams. You can't give them up. You got to get an education. That's the most important thing. Without education, you can't do too much. If you want to be a professional athlete some kind of way, you still got to go to school. You have to learn. You got to participate. And you got to get along with people. I was so grateful because I wasn't the smartest person when I grew up. I went to high school, Wingate High School State Championship, with the Ellsworth Junior College, National Junior College Championship in the country. Went to the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. Finished 7th in the nation behind UCLA, and I was drafted by the Portland Trailblazers and the Denver Nuggets. And I was fortunate enough to play a little bit with Bill Walton, Keith Wilkes, guys like that there. But all that didn't matter. What mattered was I was fulfilling my dream and my goal. I didn't know how far it would take me, but I'm happy. And I'm pleased with myself because this is something I wanted to do. And I followed it and I pursued it, and I didn't let nothing interfere directly any other way but the right way. I'm not going to pray and teach, but I'm going to say this here. You got to believe in yourself, and you got to believe and listen to your parents. Those are the most important things you must do in life to succeed. You have to follow those rules.
A guy named Joe the Destroyer Hammond. He had the lead, the scoring record in the league. Every game I stepped on the court, I was trying to break that record. The best I got was 53. One time I came close to breaking it. We were gonna play over the Stars. Chose to go on a boat ride. So they were left with a 5-man junior high school team. Play against the Rucker Pro. And I saw my opportunity. Here I go, 73 points. But as fate would have it, I'm on the warm-up line and I'm getting psyched, I'm getting warmed up. So I was getting psyched and warmed up, and word got back to him what I was going to try to do. We forfeited the game. Such is the life of basketball.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Looks like it was very enjoyable.
Yeah. Yes, it was. And and I look at the guys that were there. Part of the motivation, even to develop, to focus a little bit more on mental health and mental wellness, was as a result of a couple of the guys that were going through a lot. And I even got, I got a chance to talk to them one on one. And I had one young man. He just confided that he was suicidal. We had to get him some, help. He wasn't, he wasn't doing well emotionally, and because he was under a lot of pressure from home and taking care of his family and trying to find a job, had been in trouble. So we interfaced in a different levels, and because of there was a spiral effect, because once the basketball game started going, other things came out. family issues came up that some of them were involved in. Um, so it really opened up an opportunity to dialogue. And I think that young people need that. I start, I try to start as early as possible with the youth, even with our summer camps and our summer programs, where we try to also we make sure there's some type of athletics involved because the movement is so important. I had a situation where I had a bunch of boys as an assistant principal, and this was elementary school, and they were giving their teachers such a hard time, and it was the boys. So what I would do is in the mornings, I would race them in the morning or have them walking a mile in the morning, and it calmed them down so much. You'd be surprised at how much the athletics and participation in the physical activity can help even the psychological aspects of our youth. So
You know
it
what,
was,
Dr. Barrett?
yes.
You're touching on a point that's very dear to my heart. I know Bobby back there too. I want to ask you something because you started to allude to it. It seems to me I've always seen how athletics and spirituality, those things, have good family life, and I know that you're actually president of the Staten Island Council of Churches, and so you have a very interesting mix. I can see why Bobby wanted to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about how you feel. It's very interesting with your different professional degrees in religion, ministry, in education, in the sports mentoring. Tell me how you feel that intermeshes and the results that you've seen.
uh, what has I have seen happen is, from as a minister, I've been called into a lot of different scenarios where families are in crisis. And when you come into a situation where, of course, as a clergy person, you're always responding to crisis. This COVID-19 there's been nothing but crisis after crisis. I'm ministering to families, and so once you're in that situation and once you go in, you see there's a need. And so what happens is you have to be armed with a way to meet needs. Yes, we love the scriptures and we love the text and all of that. But there was a story of when that tells about when Jesus was sitting with his disciples and he had been teaching them all day long. And then his disciples would say, well, send them home so they could get something to eat. And Jesus said, no, you feed them. Why? Here we've given them the spiritual, but there doesn't take the place of the fact that they're still hungry. And so, whereas, we can spend, Bible thump all day long, but if somebody's hungry, that Bible thumping doesn't really meet their need. And we have our food pantry, and since COVID-19, we've I can't even begin to count the numbers of people, and families that we have been provided groceries for, even families that have called. And we had a Thanksgiving dinner, where people could come and take the food to go. And my daughter was in tears because she saw a man that had gotten the food. He was standing on the corner, and it wasn't a very, warm night either. He was standing on the corner eating the food. And my daughter was almost brought to tears because we take it for granted that we have access to so much. But there are people that don't have access to barely nothing, and the resources are limited. And so in ministry, I use my leadership, my position as a leader, to address some of these issues. We were able to get 4 churches on Staten Island a grant of $2,500 each for their food pantry through the Council of Churches. Because, and this is simply, this was just for this year through the United Brethren. They were looking for what pantries are still open. And so we identified four churches whose pantries were open. So these are some of these are needs that are there when the mental health issue came about, as a result of the fact that we were seeing an increases in children and youth in crises, mental health crises, and the whole terminology being shook is Shamana, I think his name was. He wrote a book about his own journey for when it came to his mental wellness. So these are some of the issues that we confront. It's not just about I get up and I give a good word and people are encouraging. Bobby is one of my followers. We say prayers together on Facebook, and we are, and then I do a Zoom teaching and a Bible study. We got people coming from different states that come to my Bible study on Zoom, where we learn about the scriptures
That's
to encourage
beautiful.
us. And
Wow.
yes,
Well,
I
so
you know what?
enjoy those shows, and I
We're very lucky to
appreciate
have
your
Mr.
prayer in the
Hunter.
morning.
I was going to say, we're very lucky to have Mr. Hunter with us here. Mr. Hunter, Bobby, Z, multitude of names here. Let me ask you a question. Because you played as a professional, you mentor. So, adding to Dr. Barrett Lane and what she was discussing, what would you add to already to what she's mentioned from your viewpoint in terms of what you have used over the years and found very vital for mentoring a youth or just people in general? Looks like his video may have cut out.
What was the question?
The question is on what Dr. Barrett Lane was talking about, how she integrates nutrition, spirituality, and sports together to help youth with different problems. What's your take on that, Bob?
I thought it was truly great, and it has helped me in my presentation, my solo presentation, the way that she generically moved.
It's amazing how he hangs in the air there, just like when he played basketball. Well, let's
yes.
continue. Seems like he's having a little technical difficulty with the internet line. But there's actually another event that you formulated in 2003. Can you tell us a little bit how that came about? Because I think you made another event with basketball, right?
I did. So, following the Eric Garner uh, situation, is that the one you're talking about?
You did one with honoring our heroes, 9/11, I think.
Yes, 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 yes. So what happened was we bought again concerned about the youth. That's always been my my concern, of course.
Uh-huh.
And following 9/11, what we did was during Black History Month, there were 10 firefighters, African American firefighters, one from Staten Island, and one police officer who were killed in 9/11.
Mhm.
And so it was February. It was Black History Month. I said, what a way to um, honor these guys. We did a mural. We honored them. And what we did was we had four churches that came together, and their youth actually played basketball against each other. And that was the first time we had the police department involved, because they came out to support the initiative. And so what happened was we had playoffs between the four churches, and even the youth went to church that Sunday to receive their medals and their trophies that
Uh-huh.
they were awarded. And it connected them back to a church in their community where there were so many resources for them to take advantage of. And so it was a really, really amazing time. That was the first time I had done that. I was actually the assistant principal at IS 51. and we had there were about 10 players on each team. So we
Mhm.
had, and then we had, of course, the community came out and the churches came out to cheer on um, their teams. Another thing that I am very, very involved with and very push a lot of are the arts, because that's another piece. And
Uh-huh.
what I always do is I always include the arts in our programs. So each of the churches had their own praise dance group, and so they came with their, and so during halftime the dancers danced from the different churches. And yeah, that was 2003. Wow, yes, oh my goodness.
Amazing
Yeah.
how time flies, right?
And yes, I can't believe. Then the following year we did it again, and this time it was even bigger, more expensive. We did 2 days, and the police department actually. I love the fact that the police department has always been very supportive of these and working with us. They actually bought sneakers, Nike sneakers, for all the players, so the players were able to get sneakers given to them. And they came on Friday night to register, to shoot some hoops. Again, this is about keeping them off the streets and involved and feeling this sense of self-worth. It is so important that they feel good about themselves, because life can beat you down.
Absolutely. You know, I was going to say, maybe we can in the summertime do something like that with drug education and sports and the NYPD, and so
Yes.
let's actually put that COVID's going to disappear,
Yes.
and you know that we will actually be able to do that in this summertime. How's that sound?
I love it. I love it. And that's one of the things that I do as the president. I have a pool of churches that I can say, hey, we're doing this event, and invite them all to come on out. And
Well, if you have a tournament.
That's how you build your audience.
Absolutely. It's fine. We'll have a tournament that way.
Yes.
Absolutely. So
Yes.
you know what?
How about concert on the sea?
Go ahead.
Yes, you want to tell them, have you ever been to one of our they call it Smooth Sounds by the Sea, jazz,
Right.
or by the, oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. Just jazz musicians come out and play and perform for a couple of hours, when people bring their beach chairs and sit by the water, and yeah, and just listen and enjoy.
Well,
It's the
I can just see from the smile on Bobby's face that's a no-brainer. We got to have that one.
that typically is an adult event, because people BYO, with their beach chairs, they bring their little picnic basket, and it's not something that the youth are privy to, but the adults enjoy it so much. And
It sounds like a beautiful thing. You know what I'm going to say is, you do so many things, and there's a great video of kind of like a collage of all your activities. So, and you gave it to us. So, I want to make sure we show it. So, engineer, let's show the little collage, or I don't know how little it is, but let's show the collage of Dr. Barrett Lane, please. Amazing. Truly amazing. Wow. You know, so much that you've done. And I know that's just a microcosm. You know, and then another thing, you're also an author. Is that true?
What'd you say?
I said, I think you're also an author.
Yes, I've written a few books, including a book that All Lives Matter. It's a manual for youth. It is, and it touches on the my whole concept of my life matters, and it gives a venue for youth to talk about some of the senseless shootings, police involved shootings, and as well as the Columbine shooting inside the school, the shooting of the police officers in Texas, the shooting of the 9 people inside of the church in South Carolina. I actually was in South Carolina. I didn't include the picture, but I went to South Carolina after that shooting, and it was just an opportunity as a clergy person to pray with the community, and for the healing there of the individuals. So yeah, there's been quite a bit.
Absolutely. And then I see that you wrote another one about your mess becomes your message. What is that
Yes.
one about?
So this one, it's written on the premise that a lot of times we look at our lives and we don't like the messy part of ourselves, But we have a little mess, and the little mess, is the stuff that we want to hide. But my argument in that book is to inspire people to use their mess as their message of how you came through a difficult ordeal or difficult struggle in your life. And I also, a sequel to that, is challenging your disappointments, is the second book that I wrote, as appointments with destiny. And so, and that again, it's like those disappointing moments in life that we want to run from and hide from, but a disappointment is an appointment, and it's your destiny to come through those disappointing times, such as COVID-19 and all of the survivors that have come through. We look at the losses, but out of the maybe over in New York, it's been about 300,000 people who have died, but there's been millions who did not, who got the virus and lived. So it challenges you to look at your situation, not from the perspective of poor me, my God, how did but look at it and say, I've got purpose for my life, and that's the reason why I've survived these ordeals.
So it's so true. One of the things that I have found to be true in what you were talking about in my own life, and my wife and I go by this, is that when something starts getting really difficult and you're really starting to beat your head against the wall and you're ready to just throw it out the window because you just feel it's not worth any more effort, any more time, any more resources of yours. And invariably, as long as you continue, this tremendous, beautiful end result occurs, or something that you didn't expect happens, or you meet someone because you persisted. So, you're so right in what you just said about your mess becomes your message, because it's just kind of like, I always take the thing about when you clean a room and you clean the room and you get all messy and you get sweaty and your wife comes down and yells at you because the room is a disaster. And you say, why did I start on this? How can this be? And then at that point, you finally finish, you take a shower, you come down with your wife, you look at the room and you say, wow. So, Dr. Barrett Lane, because I know we have so much to cover. Tell me a little bit about what your purpose would be with your ministries. And I see that you're president or vice president or leader of so many church activities, church groups, internationally. You bring them together. Maybe talk a little bit. I'm very interested when you bring this clergy together. what is the program, or what are the programs that you put together for them?
So we actually did the mental health and wellness, where we had featured a panel, and on the panel included Khalif Browder's brother. Khalif Browder's brother was the young man who went to prison. He was in Rikers Island for 3 years because he was accused of stealing a backpack. And he ultimately, when he came home, it was a brilliant kid, by the way, and was in college, enrolled in college, but he had been in isolation and solitary confinement for so many days of his stay there at Rikers. And one of the things with isolation is that it breeds a schizophrenic kind of episodes, and this is what happened to Khalif. And so he actually came out, attempted suicide the first time. The second time he succeeded. He was in a family where the mom had adopted so many, children. I think like 30 of them she throughout her lifetime. And it was so painful for her that she actually passed away not long after Khalif did. But so he was our featured guest, Kareem, I think what his name is, and he came and talked about his brother's story, and the fact, and highlighting the fact that people are suffering, and we need to recognize the signs and symptoms and the triggers and that come about. And even with regard to, and we also had someone on the panel who was talked about the drug epidemic, and how many times stressors that and triggers can tip someone over to say, I can't handle this and I can't manage this, and so they resort to drugs. We've seen a lot of relapses. Those that were clean and sober here on Staten Island, they're relapsing, or they're seeking out medicinal. And here on Staten Island, part of our issues is that there's a lot of them that are getting opioids legally, because some doctor is prescribing this, and they're making this money off of the fact that, it's something that started out with a simple surgery that needed a Percocet or two, turns into an addiction, or fentanyl, or some of the other Xanax. These are some of the drugs of choice that are, like back in the day, it was Quaaludes and Valium. Well, today it's, you've got the Percocet, and you've got these different drugs that are being prescribed, oxycodone, and because for pain, and it's mismanaged. But truthfully, like, I watched my own daughter. She was following her surgery. She was had major surgery, 9-hour surgery, and came out. Of course, this is what they prescribe. She had to go through withdrawal, and every time she goes to surgery, they prescribe more, and she has to always go through withdrawal. She goes through the sweats and the nausea and everything else. And can you imagine someone who's just saying, I'm in pain, I'm in emotional pain, I'm in mental pain, I'm in mental anguish, and so the doctor can give me something, and when that venue runs out, of course, then it's um, the street sales, then pick up where the doctors stop. And it's been a very difficult cycle. So we've joined the churches together to march, to bring awareness about the drug epidemic. We bring the churches to deal with the mental illness issue. As a matter of fact, 27% of those that uh, that seek out help for mental illness, 27% of them go to their clergy first. That's pretty significant, because there is no other venue that has a highest percentage. Now, the other percentages of where they will go, family, friends, teachers, the doctor, blah, 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 is divvied up. The other 73%. is divvied up between those other entities. But 27% of the people, when they start not feeling well mentally or emotionally, will go to their clergy first before they
Very
go
interesting.
any place else.
Very, very, very interesting statistic. Very important one, because,
Yeah.
you know, this is another one that I want to combine with what you just said. It's a
Mhm.
very interesting one. Is if we can educate and empower kids up to the age of 20, 21,
Mhm.
and they don't really get involved in a drug problem. By the time they get to be about 20, 21, the statistics show that over 95% or so will never use drugs in their
That's
lifetime.
amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing that we
So
can
that's why
actually prevent.
that's why, you know, when you talk about the drug education that you've been doing and uniting the clergy and then educating them on the truth about drugs, that is a powerful weapon, because between sports and the education, wow.
Yes, yes. And I don't know what they're putting in this marijuana, but I've talked, I've dealt, um, I interface with the community and with the young people and the young men, and it makes them so lethargic, like they don't want to do anything, and it breaks my heart to see them. They just want to sit around and smoke marijuana. If they have a job, they'll go to job and come home. Between that, and all of the other stuff that's going on. Um, I just really, I use my influence. Yes, you're right. To educate, we must educate.
I think at this point, Mr. Hunter, can you hear me? I guess not. I guess his link went off. Okay.
There he
Can you
is.
hear me, Mr. Hunter? Can't hear you.
There he is.
That marijuana is called K2.
K2.
Yes.
I have a young man that he is, he smoked that. What's that? Flocka, Special K, Special K.
Yes. K2. Yes.
He smoked that. His mother is a school teacher. He smoked it, got into his mother's car, not licensed, drove down the street where the church is, banged up a bunch of cars. When I see him, it breaks my heart because he was a brilliant young man. He used to come to the church, um, and he's talking to himself. He's out of his mind. He's unkempt, is on the street most of the time, but he always looks, he says, "Hi, Reverend Lane, how are you?" He recognizes me. He recognizes the woman who runs the food pantry. Um, but it's so sad to see this young man who was so brilliant and so smart, it just destroyed. And I see, and you see him walking around the community. This is the kinds of stuff we need. I want us to prevent.
What is the effect? What is the effect of heroin in your community?
I was just sharing with Dr. Ben about the fact that the heroin is the go-to once the doctors start giving the prescription, stop giving prescriptions for oxycodone and Percocet and Xanax. And once the doctor says, okay, I can't give you any more, that's when they resort to the street drugs, like heroin. There is an uptick because of COVID-19. A lot of people are relapsing, and the fact that they can't go into a drug treatment facility. They're not.
Mm.
That's another issue right now that's complicating the drug epidemic, because the treatment is not there because of COVID-19.
You know what? There's so many. You touched on such an important issue that with COVID-19, what's happening is, because we don't have that human contact. You're so right. There's that human contact is missing.
Yeah.
That relationship is missing. It's amazing when I come home from work. I know sometimes I'm exhausted, and my wife is here, and I see her, and I got a chance to speak with her. I see her, and it's very interesting. It's so therapeutic. You know, sometimes we don't realize how much just being with each other
Yeah.
and relating to each other like we are really on this show. I'm having such a great time, you know, with you and Bobby here on this show, you know, and I know that the people watching the show are probably feeling it also. And, you know, I've always said, and, you know, I might as well do it now. I always just said, if we really took a look at something, if we looked at how it feels when it's a holiday, and let's say it's Memorial Day, and Memorial Day is going to be, let's say, a 3-day weekend,
Mhm.
and it's going to last till Monday, and it's only Friday now. And there's a wonderful feeling that hits because we have the whole community involved in this activity, even though we don't see each other, but you can feel it. And then what happens is, unfortunately, the holiday comes to an end. And as it comes to an end and you get to Sunday night around 10, 9, you start feeling a change in the environment. If it's even if it's sunny or it's rainy or it's clear, but it's actually an effect created by our spirituality. It's so interesting to me. What do you think about that, Dr. Lane?
It's so true. I'll tell people I have SAD, seasonal affective disorder. It's when the seasons change. You know, I even just the whole idea of, like you said, the contact or lack thereof, and people that were already isolated, and then they've got to, like you said, you know, come when it's time to go home. Who do you go home to? Uh, you know, you're fine when you're outdoors, but then you got to go home, or you got to, maybe you are in a situation with people that where there is abuse, or there are other factors going on, alcoholism. I got a call. Actually, someone reached out to our church through our website to say there's somebody that needs food and they can't come out because of COVID-19 or whatever. So I loaded up a bunch of groceries, and I took it to the house. They had 7 kids. This was
Wow.
the 7 children, and I went there, and the mother looked like there might have been some drug issues
Uh,
going on. The house was in disarray, like, and the kids were there, you know, and this was, for me, it was sad to see you're hungry, your life is not together, and you're stuck in the house. Can you imagine?
Absolutely. It's horrific. You know, the National Institute of Health has actually shown that when pregnant mothers use marijuana, they have tremendous problems with depression and their health. But on top of that, then their babies are born with psychosis. And
Wow.
so they end up developing in middle childhood, schizophrenia. And this has actually been studied by the National Institute of Health, by the director, who is Dr. Nora Volkov. And
Mhm.
to me, what you're touching on such an important point, because we really have to realize that as human beings, that if we relate to each other, and like you said, you know, we take care of our families, we have our spirituality, whether it's a church, whether it's a synagogue, whether it's a mosque. I think the point that you brought out tonight is that we all have spirituality, and that we have our outlets, like you said, the arts, the sports. You know, we had Mr. Hunter on with tonight that I always love. You know, Bob, I got to tell you, thank you for having found and bringing Dr. Barrett Lane on this show. It is amazing, you know, and He's such a good guy tonight. He's
Yeah.
making sure he can't talk. So that he is such a great man. So I want to ask you as we end the show, Dr. Barrett Lane, is there anything you would like to tell the viewers as we come out of this COVID in this year, 2021? Some last statement you want to do for this show?
I just, you know what, get involved. You can't do some things you can't do, but that, you know, something as simple as we have people that say, hey, I don't have the finances to give, or I don't have the expertise to coach, or but you know what, you saw the picture of those bags of toiletries. We sent those over to the Bahamas because after the hurricane. You know, we take it for granted that people, when we have things and others don't. The one thing I would say is get involved.
I love it. So let's get everybody out there involved.
Yes.
And thank you, Dr. Barrett Lane. If I ask you, will you come on the show again?
Yes, of course, of course.
Okay, because I love it. It was great. It's a great time tonight. Thank you, Mr. Hunter. You always bring home the bacon. And I look forward to our next episode next Monday. Thank you all for participating. And from our show and the three of us to you, may you have a wonderful week and do really well. We'll see you next week.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.